then, I have just finished watching episode 4 of season 2 of The Wheel of Time, titled Daughter of the Night. My, what an episode that was. So, in a change to how I've been doing things, this is my immediate reaction and thoughts based on notes I took on my phone while I was watching it. There will be spoilers, I'm not going to filter anything, so you have been warned, but watch on because this was a good one. Okay, so you'll have to bear with me now because I have many notes on here and I haven't had time to commit many of them to memory. So if you see me looking down, I'm just catching up on where I was. But here we go then. So this episode was brilliant, especially if you, like I and a lot of other people, have read the books and know exactly who Selene is. Knowing that, it allows them to ratchet up the tension an awful lot, especially because of the cold open. Now, cold open was the clip we got of Ishamael freeing Lanfear from her seal. There's a video about that you can see here. And what was especially good, and what I'm especially happy about with that, was that when I saw that clip that was released originally, I immediately thought that this looked like the ruins of the city from the Age of Legends that we saw in episode 1, and then we saw when Lews Therin was plotting his strike on Shale Gull in episode 8, and I think the bit at the start that we didn't get in the clip, which saw him walking through it and recognizing the place, I'm certain that was the same city, or if not the same city, certainly another ruined city from the Age of Legends that's long lost and long hidden. So I really enjoyed that. It was good to see her freed, and as mentioned in the previous video, it was just weave he did was much more precise and much more controlled than anything that you would see an Aes Sedai do in the modern day, which really sets them apart. Moving on though, they are making a big point in this series about how Aes Sedai age differently because the one power slows down their aging process, and I completely missed it in the previous episode that Anivere is Moiraine's sister, Moiraine's little sister, and yet she is old. She is at the end of her life, and Moiraine still looks like she's barely middle-aged. Although a lot of that has got to do with Rosamund Pike being Rosamund Pike, I guess. But obviously, when Moiraine comes there, she's so cold, and she's, you know, her little sister is an old woman at this point, and she's not seen her in decades, and still she's just like, I'm having my house, I'm going back to my room, I'm gonna play with my toys, and then I'm off out. No, I'm not gonna do lunch with you. Maybe I'll do lunch, but I definitely won't do tea right now. And I know you've got to have that detachment, Sedai, who lives for hundreds of years, because you are going to lose everyone who is close to you who is also not a nice. It's really hard to see on screen, and they make a point with this in the previous episode about Liandrin's son, which is something that we do get to in this as well, is that Liandrin hid her son for 80 to 90 years, which means he's a very old man, and he's not long for this world, which is that long, that's been the peace that she's kept. And I think that perhaps we will see, given time for some more exposition later, that fact that the loss is what will maybe turn Liandrin to the dark. I think that knowing she will eventually lose her son, looking for a way to break the wheel, get immortality, whatever it will be, she'll swear to the dark for that. Because Liandrin, although not the nicest person so far, has come across as essentially good. Odd methods, but she's largely wanted the best for Nynaeve, and she's come across as caring in her own way, and so there needs to be a reason for her to turn, I think. Just very quickly again, they keep giving us new aerial shots of the White Tower and Tar Valon, and each of them just looks better than the last. The one in this one was fantastic. I had to really take a pause and just take a look around because it's a different angle to the city again. And that allows us to pick up with Nynaeve after her ordeal, and what an ordeal that was. Throughout this episode, she is grieving a husband and a child. Well, she's met the husband, but obviously she's never married him, and she's never given birth or raised to a child. But for her, it happened. All these years happened, and she's grieving something that for everyone else was just a few hours, and it must be impossible. A lovely touch though is that her accepted her accepted robes and her dress, instead of having like a hem as I always imagined it was on. The rainbow colours are on the sleeves, and that looks really nice. I think that's quite good. But she's had a chance to choose an Aija, so. And it keeps mentioning, and this is more foreshadowing for the future. Like keep mentioning a person through there since Cadsuan Sadai. So we'll be seeing Cadsuan at some point. I hope we see her a little bit earlier. I hope there's some crossover, because Cadsuan, we could do with some more background on. She just turns up, that's it, just out of the blue, like I'm coming out to fix this problem that you've all created for me. And I think it'd be much better if we see a bit of her before she meets up with the main characters. A little bit of alone time with Cadsuan will be very good. Moiraine, I know I spoke in my full spoiler video about episode 1. I still need to do 2 and 3. This will count as episode 4's full spoiler video, I think. But I know I talked about her being hardcore and managing to shank a Benadryl in the face, which was fantastic given no powers. But she's sly in this one as well, so she's arranged for Loghain to be in the asylum. It's not something the Tower have done, it's something Moiraine's done, because she knew Rand would be able to find him. She has arranged for Rand to get the job. Little does Rand know this. She has arranged for everything in order to give Rand someone who may be able to train him. And she's so cold because she knows that what Loghain wants most of all is to die, and she will help that by leaving a dagger somewhere behind once she is satisfied that he's done a good job. And she can't lie. Well, maybe she can lie. We don't know. She's been stilled. She can lie. If she's been shielded, she can't lie. That will be interesting to see. A bit more foreshadowing as well, with Liandrin making points about to Lyanna about the invaders, the Seanchan invaders, who obviously at this point the Tower knows very little about, although they have sent people to investigate and none have come back. And while she's pushing on that to see what's going on, she knows what's going on. She's been filled in. We'll get to that later, but she knows. But she also threatens Lyanna with the if the Amyrlin was to fall, if Siuan was to fall, then so would she. And well, I mean, it's coming, isn't it? It's we've not seen the Amyrlin in this one yet, but there's dissent in the Tower, and that is important to see before anything might happen. Perrin got some really good service in this episode. I think Perrin talking to Elias, who's filling in on certain things. So having criticised the visions previously, we know that wolves exist in both worlds, kind of simultaneously, and that they go to the dream after they die, and so it makes sense that they would communicate. In the book it's always like a series of impressions, so we just change the impression to visions, and it makes a lot of sense, and that's how they talk, and it takes a while to understand them. But obviously the wolf that's walking alongside him, I spent ages hoping that would be Hopper, because, you know, everyone needs a favourite wolf, and everyone's favourite wolf in this would be Hopper. Wise Hopper. And so it turns out eventually he manages to understand that the vision Hopper sends is a explanation of his name, which is great. It's also interesting to know then that everybody knew about Perrin before Perrin had the I say everybody, all the wolves and Elias knew about Perrin before Perrin had the foggiest idea that there actually was something to know about. He was broadcasting his grief visions to all wolves and the wolf brother Elias miles around for months, and that's why they came when he and Egwene were captured by the White Cloaks. It's not that he suddenly discovered some power and just summoned them, it's that they came to free him because they knew who he was. They knew that he was essentially a wolf who needed help, and so it's been months that they've been following him. They must have known about him for a very long time. Moving over to Lan briefly, interested as to what is going on there, because there's a lot of talk. He's with Maskin, Ivan and Alana, and having a lovely family time by the looks of it. He's smiling, and they're all treating him like he's lost an Aes Sedai, like the bond has been broken. I'm sure Moiraine said she released him. Whether or not she's just masked the bond, it's not something that Lan knew was possible, but that becomes apparent later on that it is. And so are we to believe then that Lan is at risk of suicide, and that he's at risk of because his Aes Sedai, his bond is broken? Is he in danger? Is he a danger to himself and to others? Or Is it just that Moiraine has masked this bond? And is that something that you can do when you're severed from the power or shield? Is that a separate thing once the bond is established? Is that something you have mental control over, perhaps? But it is interesting that they're all making this effort to keep him happy. We'll see where it goes, but it ends in the episode with a big revelation with the poem that Moiraine had acquired from Bail Doman that she sent with Lan. And when they read it, they understand truly what that means, and I think that's going to set something in motion that I'm not so sure is going to end well for anyone there. Moving on, the other scene we've seen, the scene of the kiss between Lean and Rand on the cliff, of which I have done another video, and you can see that other video here. That kiss, as with the scene where Mael is about to free Lanfear, we see in this one there's a little bit more before it, and once again talking about how this was a place that meant a lot to her, and she's talking about the first person that she loved, and as she has all the way, the person she's talking about is Lews Therin, and it's so insightful as to her motives and everything that she's talking about, because Rand is Lews Therin reincarnated, although he does not necessarily at this point have a clue about his past or what happened, just that he is the soul of the dragon reincarnated. She knows this and therefore has found the person she loved and is manipulating them into loving her back, and everything she says is working towards that, and it's wonderfully dark, and it's superbly manipulative, and it's very, very, very Lanfear. Sadly, there were no Chodan Kal in the background that I could see, although you could see the city of Carrion in the distance, which I did not notice in the clip. I don't know if it was in the clip or whether the resolution wasn't so good, but they aren't too far away. They're in the countryside and it's visible, but I wonder if it might be something we might see in a future episode. So here's the thing about Liandrin's efforts earlier to undermine Leanne and to push for more investigation of the invaders in the west, and it's cleverly done because now she's got that on record. When she then goes to Nynaeve and she shares about her son and everything, what she really wants to do is she wants Nynaeve and Elaine to go with her, willingly or unwillingly, preferably in a way where they'll be docile and not at all able to fight. She wants them to go with her to Falme and to hand them over to the Seanchan in order to persuade Egwene, which is going to be a lot harder than Nynaeve, who she's got some claws into. She spends a bit of time sharing with Nynaeve what's happened, and because as a dark friend that she is, she's got the information from Ishamael or someone else. I'm assuming at this point it was probably Liandrin, who was at the Dark Friend Social in the previous episodes. I think that makes the most sense because she is part of this grand plan to get everyone to the Seanchan. And so she persuades Nynaeve that there's a problem with Perrin and Loial and the Shienarans, and that someone needs to go help them, knowing that Nynaeve, who came here to help people and to save those she loved, would immediately go recruit Egwene, and they would go and do it. And so it's a clever ploy. She persuades Nynaeve. Nynaeve goes get Egwene. There's a little complication right there with Elaine, but she deals with them all with one big blast of air, knocks them out on the wall. And we've already seen in trailers and in those little short clips where they kept popping circles out in the middle of the screen, we've seen that she is leaving a waygate with 3 horses with 3 people in white draped over the back and bound in flows of air, I'm sure. So that's heading now very quickly in the direction that we expected to head. But they did such a good job with it, because even though she's done it, there's no real reason for her to have done it. We don't have any background in it. She has been a dutiful, if occasionally unorthodox, Aes Sedai. She's Red Sister, so obviously she's a bit strict, and but she's given reasons for all of it, and everything she's done makes a lot of sense. And so I just think that perhaps this was certainly supposed to come as more of a shock to viewers who haven't read the books, but I mean, even for me, I'm conflicted about it, and I think it's really, really good the way they've done it, because she's a much better character. Absolutely far better character than she was in the books. She's got layers to her, nuance, hopes, dreams, a son who is 90. Yeah, so that's the majority of it. We didn't see much Mat and Min, but what we did see of Mat and Min is interesting, because Min also tapped by Liandrin under the premise that she could remove her visions because Min's visions haunt her dreams because she sees so much death and what will happen to people and all this peril and horror and suffering in much greater numbers than she sees that are nice, that she has nightmares about it. And so when she is, so say, wakes, she doesn't wake from a nightmare, but when she's brought into a waking dream and Ishamael is there telling her to bring Matt to Kyrian, and she's like, I'm not a dark friend, I'm not, you know, this is not what I agreed to. She's still very tempted because she wants these gone. Now it's a case of, is she just going to play along? He's admitted to her that he's a Forsaken, and I mean, you could say no to a Forsaken, but you only get to do it once, because after that you either have no free will or you're dead. So is she playing along, or is she truly tempted by the dark? Guess we'll find out. But her and Matt still quite entertaining. Matt still has no luck whatsoever. I cannot wait for that to change. I think the fact that they've set it up now several times in the Two Rivers and with Min now, it really is going to make a big difference when his luck changes and he can't help but roll 5/6s all the time. It's going to be a huge change, and we'll see more of the Matt we saw in Nynaeve's experience in the Third Arch, a much more fine dress, wealthy man that he became in the end. Right, the final part of this episode. Right, so Rand and Selene, Lanfear, Selene Fear, Lanleen, whatever you want to call her at this point, they having a nap by the campfire, and Rand hears the noise and wakes up, and there's lots of stones around, and immediately I'm thinking, ooh, portal stones. There are no portal stones. They're not portal stones. I don't think they're just stones, although I'd like them to be portal stones. I fear we're going to lose that part of it, and that is a shame. But there is a Fade. A random Fade who's just there, and he tries to fight it with the with his Heron Mark blade, and is immediately dealt with and disarmed because he's not yet a Blade Master, and Fades are bloody hard to kill even for a Blade Master. But Selene does a blooming good job of looking scared, and Rand consciously channels fire into it and just absolutely blasts the thing out of existence, which is very impressive, very good for him. But after that, they have the obvious chat. Oh, you can channel. Yes, I can channel. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have told you. But what does that mean for us? But obviously we know that she's not who she's supposed to be, and she's playing along with this all the time and acting afraid, and she's doing a real good job of it in order to persuade him to admit his love for her, because she's manipulating him to get back into the cabin, of which they both do, but not one of them, either Selene in her vulnerable character or Rand in his I've just channeled a Fade out of existence, question why there was just one Fade nearby. Nobody asks why there was a Fade, and nobody thinks to maybe look around to see if there's any Trollocs around or more Fades. He's been found now. Surely that's it. Surely they should move on and escape. But no, they're quite happy. And I guess that's part of the manipulation that she's got going on at this point. It must be. But then it's all coming to a head, and she's just about to reveal herself, and there's a lovely touch there where something's happening to her, and she's like, I'm a monster too, and she goes all wibbly, and Rand is very much like, what's going on? And because we're seeing it from Rand's point of view, we don't see any weaves at all. We don't see her channeling in the slightest, because he can't see her channeling, because he can't see her weaves. And I think that's very well done, because obviously channelers of different sexes cannot see the other weaves, so it's nicely done. It's the first time I think we've seen it, to be honest. But then the big shock of all, just as we're about to get the reveal, I'm about to say, oh, Lanfear, what is it? Are you still blood covered and dripping? Have you been wearing a mask all this time? Rand's sword appears out of her chest through the heart, and then Moiraine grabs her hair and takes her throat, and that's it. She's dead. Done. No more Lanfear. Finished straight away. Moiraine has chopped up a Forsaken with no powers whatsoever. Except that apparently she hasn't. Apparently that doesn't kill her. Which I'm not so sure about, because they're always vulnerable, Forsaken. They've always been vulnerable to actual wounds. I mean, they're very vulnerable to Balefire, because everyone's vulnerable to Balefire. But they've been killed by other means as well. And it does seem odd that she just gets back up, or not gets back up, but breathes again and is okay. It's like, unless she's got some sort of Ter'angreal, which is like an auto-healing, like an auto-med pack from a computer game. Who knows? But that's it. That's the episode, and it's bloody fantastic. I think it's as good as number 3. definitely. I don't know if it's better. It's a lot more. There's an awful lot. I know there was a lot of world building in Series 1, but the world building here is at a slower pace. It is easier to take in. It's more leisurely, but there's still an awful lot of it. But that said, I did love this episode. I thought it was absolutely glorious, and I cannot wait for episode 5, where we're going to see things. So the little clip we saw of episode 5 suggests that Fane is going to get the Horn of Valir to the Seanchan, and Turak's going to open that. We know that Min needs to get Rand to Cairhien. We know that Moiraine and Rand are on the run, and we know that the girls are currently off, captured by Liandrin. So that's it. There's not much apart from Perrin. Everyone else is in peril, and so I can't wait to find out. There are 4 more episodes left in this series. How they have to cover I mean, I can see them getting to the end of the Great Hunt quite well. I'm not so sure, unless we're going to have a quick jump ahead, I'm not so sure how much of book 3 we're going to get covered in this, and how much of that might get moved around a bit to come after season 3. But it's heading in the right direction. It's fantastic. I'm really, really happy with this series, and I can't wait for any more. So there we go. Now, would you please do us a huge favour and leave a like for this video, and if you haven't already, sign into YouTube and click subscribe, because we are, at time of recording this, 407 subscribers, 93 subscribers away from 500, and 593 away from 1,000, and we'd love to get to both. 500 first, but I mean, if you all watch and you all subscribe, maybe we'll get to 1,000 quicker. But please do like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.